did each of those like four, I see myself in each of these at certain points, like not equally split, but I see elements of myself in each of them. Hello, welcome back to the podcast Evolve with me, Lewis, and Sam. I haven't said that in 2 weeks.
Hello.
How's it going, man?
Hello. I'm good, man. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good. I feel focused. I feel like I'm now settling in. I'm like in the office. I'm like in the setup. Work's ramping up. I'm moving with purpose. And yeah, man, I feel good. I feel like I have clarity, which is good. So yeah, man. Yeah. How are you? How's it going?
I'm doing good. I feel like somewhat. I feel somewhat maybe different in the sense that I have clarity over what I want. I'm feeling more focused and resilient. I just feel like, actually, no, take it back. I'm feeling more focused. I just need a bit of grit and resilience to put that focus into action. So in the past few eps, well, since the beginning of this, our recordings has either been I'm really up or I'm really down. And it's rarely that I'm like locked in and focused. So now I'm locked in and focused, but I do find like I'm lacking the motivation to actually do more things about that focus. So general stuff. So making sure the socials are top on episodes, making sure that I'm doing my daily work and all these things. It's kind of fine. I think where I'm suffering is on the coursework and Thai boxing training and making sure I'm on top of things. I do think I'm expecting a lot more from myself than I probably should. And because of that, I just don't feel like I'm succeeding in the ways that I imagine I should be. But when I look back, I think I've improved a lot. It's just that I improved at a pace that is now kind of plateauing, or the rate of increase is reduced because maybe I'm reaching like my mental and physical best capability. Does that make sense? Like I'm not seeing a dramatic change in improvement anymore in like my
I hear what you're
behavior
saying. And
approach towards
your
things.
newbie gains have gone.
Yeah, it's gone, and like I'm thankful it lasted almost a decade. Um, but yeah, I've reached a point where things are slowing down. Maybe it's because I'm becoming more pragmatic. I'm not just jumping into stuff. It could also be that I'm being more honest about what is actually successful and what is actually busy. And because I'm more honest with myself, I'm maybe not attributing the same level of points to previous actions and behaviors. I'm just kind of taking a back seat and really, really trying to understand things a bit better. So because I'm looking at things with magnifying glass, what used to be look at magnifying. It's almost like, how do I put it? Looking at a ruler on a magnifying glass, if you look from a distance, you've got 30 centimeters. But if you're going to count all the millimeters, all of a sudden, all these granular steps are being made. But when I look back, I've not made a giant leap like I probably would have. So yeah, maybe it's because I'm taking a closer look at things. I'm making small incremental changes that aren't as impactful in my whole life, but they're beneficial in the long run, I think. That's a bit wishy-washy. Lewis, what's the episode about today?
We're talking about attachment styles and how this will translate into business relationships, and personal relationships. And to kick things off, I tick symptoms of all of them. Like in different areas. Yeah. Like when I look into like different things, like into each of those like four, I see myself in each of these at certain points, like not equally split, but I see elements of myself in each of them. And the attachment styles are basically on a spectrum. Like you're not necessarily in one all the time. Like you can shift and move around, like not frequently, but I've seen myself in, for example, so you have just for those who are new, so you have your secure attachment style, then you have anxious, avoidant, and the other one is fearful, avoidant, or disorganized attachment. Sam, correct me if I'm wrong.
It's secure, anxious, disorganized, and avoidant.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So for example, secure attachment style is kind of like what is like considered the really nice one and considered the one that works well with others, based off my understanding, and works well in teams and is open to feedback. However, the reason why I say I see myself in others is that in terms of the avoidant attachment style, in terms of business, they prefer to work alone and avoid team reliance. That is me to a T as well. But I also work well with others as well. So what does that mean? Um, so Sam, as you have, you've studied this
Yeah,
extensively.
I've lived it.
Yeah, run me them thoughts.
So I think what you're doing is taking out the factor that is context within your assessment of yourself. So when you do any kind of personality test, when you do any kind of, behavioral assessments, one thing that my counselors have told me, one thing I'm aware of myself is always situational. The scores you get are usually based on how you feel at the time. So when I used to do my mental health assessments, if I did it like in the morning before work, I might be feeling more anxious. And because of that, my answers might actually display more anxiety or more depression because in that situation, I'm feeling that way. Attachment styles is very contextual. It's very much as in what are you thinking about or what's the focal point when you're actually doing an assessment for it. So if you're thinking about your relationship, you're probably thinking about your attachment to your partner, how you interact with your partner, how you interact with someone that you're ridiculously close to, that you're quite vulnerable with. And the scores might be a bit more sensitive and you might not be Mr. Perfect in that one, right? Because you become, either you have no idea how you're portrayed by your partner or wherever it is, but regardless, your scores are a bit more skewed because it's quite sensitive. And when you think about, okay, I'm doing about my attachment styles, my colleagues and work, these people that you're not as close to, maybe you're not as vulnerable with, so you're probably more logical in your approach to them. Or you could be more vulnerable and you could be quite high strung because your company's annoying you, your colleagues are annoying you, right? So you might think, okay, well, if I think about this individual, what's my attachment style to them and they're in my team? And if I think about all these other individuals in my team, what's my general thoughts of them? And all of these different contexts sway not just your input into the survey, but your view of yourself and how you interact with other people. So because of that, you have to make it contextual. If you're looking at attachment styles, I strongly believe you have to do it based on what your focal point is. So if I'm doing an attachment style assessment, I might sit down and tell myself, okay, this is about my attachment styles with work. This is about my attachment style with my partner. It might be that the actual assessment already seeks to set that context for you in the way it asks the question. So it might ask you, what do you think of your colleagues instead of asking you, what do you think of your partner? That kind of thing. But in general, I do think it's quite based on context and you're seeing multiple results because you're thinking of different things as you process what you're learning. I think it's very unlikely for someone to have secured attachment in all forms of context. No one is that perfect. It's very, very, unless you're like a Buddhist monk with no trials and tribulations, it's quite difficult. Have you met anyone? Actually, no, pause. We'll touch on this later, but what made you want to do this, Eps? Because this was your idea, this episode. What brought it to your mind?
That's a good question. I actually have no idea. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but I think I saw something that made me think about it, and I remember being in a bar a few years ago, and I was at a bar with like a mate of mine, and he was with a girl, and she was a psychology student or master student of one of them, and she was basically assessing all of us and be like, "Oh, you're this attachment style, and you're this attachment style based off like some random shit." And I don't know why the conversation just came back into my head, and I remember having that conversation with this person, and she was like, "Oh, you might be this attachment style in this context and this in this context," and I was like, "Okay." And I don't know why that conversation just popped into my head when I saw it. Probably was a TikTok or a reel, and I thought, I actually don't know where I would put myself. But again, it's because of in different scenarios I'm in, I think I would fit into different ones. And for example, if it's based off relationships alone,
Mhm.
like in my relationship, I would say that majority of the time, I would portray a secure attachment style. However, if I'm having a really shit day, like for example, when I was, you know, super hyper fixated on getting a job and, feeling like I'm failing and shit like that, I was very anxious. So I was
Mm,
probably anxious attachment at that point. Um, so I was very much in that bubble or that category. I would say majority of last year. I'd
mm.
say I'm definitely more secure now. So yeah, it's just kind of got me thinking.
Fair enough. I would say that from the learnings I've had, you probably need to be more generalized in your personal assessment of your attachment style. Maybe go for like a what's the average score in what quadrant of it for you? Does that make sense? Just because
Yeah, yeah,
if you like, you probably need to group it all to like if it's about your career and not maybe it's not about that day at work. Maybe think about it more like in general across my career is what stands for me. You might find that you'll put yourself bang in the middle for almost every score or every system you do, but that's fine. If you end up across all of them, then okay, you're weirdo, but that's okay. I do think that that probably would help. I'm obviously not a psychologist. I'm not a trained mental health practitioner. I'm only thinking from my experience talking to my counselors about the attachment styles. But I do think when you generalize your view of it a bit more, you can kind of create like a holistic scoring system for yourself.
mm.
And you're not as impacted. But that's quite hard to do. That's so hard to do because it's so hard to like override what you're feeling then and there without maybe doing what you've advised me to do a lot, which is keep a diary or kind of keep track of your emotional states. And maybe there's an attachment styles app that you could probably use and run it for like a year and then look back in a year and see what your average score is across the different positions. I don't know. Maybe there's something like that that can help people. And if there is, like, contact us. Happy to have sponsors. But I do think it's probably best to have more of a general view when it comes to attachment styles.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Do you have people around you that you look at the styles and you kind of go, yeah, that's them? Do you look at people and like secured and like anxious and all these people?
I think I have had experiences where someone has definitely been a certain. I don't want to villainize any sort of attachment style,
Mhm.
but I know I can't really work with. I don't know. I don't want to say I don't want to be very definitive, but in the past, when I interact with people who are heavily anxious attachment style, I found it quite difficult to relate to them and able to navigate with them through uh that sort of style, just because I was very much like, maybe I was a bit, I can tend to be a bit too pragmatic at times, and when someone is feeling uh a certain way about something that needs frequent validation, and I don't think it's needed, because I view it as quite a in my 29 years of life, if someone is frequently needs validation from, like, oh, their friend who they don't like, for example, I'm very much like, well, that's fucking stupid. Like, but, like, that's just like a example, right?
Yeah.
If someone has an exact anxious attachment style to
Mhm.
try and make someone who they don't like them, I'm literally like, that doesn't make sense to me at all, and you need to get over it, because how are you going to get through life if you keep on giving a shit about people who you don't even like yourself? And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, but it just fit. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that's a very good example of, I can't relate to your attachment style in that context.
Do you?
Do you see what I mean?
I see what you mean, but I wonder if it is a choice for you then, because when we talk about like our partners and you talk about like what you and Rosie do and how you plan, it's quite structured. There's a lot of reason to what you do. There's a lot of like decisions that are made because you can see the end goal of it benefiting your relationships. You're both quite organized in how you approach each other with the accountability buddy or accountability
Yeah.
buddies and all those kind of things, right? And I wonder, when you say that, is it a choice for you to care and not care about other people's attachment styles in that way? Because you clearly have the capability to reason your way into caring about someone close to you and their issues.
That's a good point. Well, I think that goes into a different
Mm.
sort of thing where you know, have you ever heard of the phrase like love is a choice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do tell for the audience.
And well, to sum up, I can't remember where this came from, but it kind of like stuck in my head. But there are days where, like you love of course is a feeling. However, I think choosing to love someone in particular means that even though you might not necessarily agree with them or their way of thinking, you have to be like, you kind of have to think outside of yourself, even though if you disagree with what they're doing or the way that they're thinking,
Mm.
you need to choose to love them in that moment.
Mm.
And I think everybody can sympathize to this because don't get me wrong, it's automatic most of the time. But there are choices, there are days where you have to choose to love your partner when they're pissing you off. And I don't care if that gets me in trouble, but that's 100% fucking true, and I'll die on that hill.
Come next Monday, you're screwed. Come next Monday. Come next Monday.
Because I know that, but there have been times where I know Rosie's had to choose to love me that day,
Yeah.
and I haven't been.
No, I hear that. I hear that.
So
I
yeah,
I do when I look at the list and when I look at different types of styles, I have dated someone from probably every option on this list.
Mm.
I'm gonna say all of them just so I can give Sarah a secure attachment style without getting in trouble. Because I genuinely do think she is the secure
Yeah.
attachment style person. She's as annoying as it is, she is quite clear in segmenting this relationship from any other relationships he's had. She's clear in reading this for what it is and approaching it. It's do I feel like I get my fair share of apologies, whatever it is every day? Do I feel like I'm treated right every day? Maybe not, but maybe that's my perception of things, right? In general, though, I would say she's quite pragmatic. She's quite clear in her viewpoints around things, and it's not often. I would say it's not often diluted or way. It's not often messed up by her previous experiences. There are things we all go through. There is trauma that we all go through and we bring into our current lives. But in general, I'd say she's quite level-headed. That's the best way to put it. I have had an ex who was the avoidant style. I have had someone who is the disorganized style. And maybe, I don't know if I wouldn't say I've had someone who's anxious, but I know I'm definitely the anxious style. And I remember when I went through counseling and I remember being told about how people who have the anxious style tend to end up with someone who's avoidant, which is
that's the worst one.
exactly. But see it this way. And I'm thankful I went through counseling. Obviously, I'm with someone who I would see as the secure style. But people who are anxious end up the avoidant, because the avoidant people tend to, for whatever traumas they've been through, quite self-sufficient, don't want anyone near them. A close relationship for them is like worst nightmare ever, although they seek it because they also don't want to be alone. So they do like the idea of a relationship, although they're secure in themselves and they like to think it, deep down they want it. And that's how they end up in relationships. And that's how they end up in situations where they go to a counselor and find out they've got the avoidance style, right? However, the anxious type people, for whatever traumas we've been through or they've been through, tend to desperately seek out almost like someone to get close to them. And it's constantly trying to find out ways of how can I make this person love me more? How can I make this person like me more? And all these things, because that's all you care about. All you care about is making sure that you're loved and you're liked more, making sure that people want to be around you and you can bring them closer. But the avoidant people don't want that. So then what you end up having is someone who's constantly chasing and someone who's constantly running away. But the anxious person kind of low-key loves to chase. So you're constantly just moving away from each other and just moving in an opposite direction. And I think that's how they usually end up together. The perfect people to fix any one of especially the anxious style, is the secure attachment. But the secure attachment is like the O positive or O type blood, right? It's good for everyone, but I'm not sure if everyone's good for them. See what I mean? Like the perfect thing with someone with secure attachment is, I'd say because maybe I have the anxious attachment style, in many ways I look up to Sarah. And I now have a lot more self-control over like my anxieties or like that itch I feel of like, what's wrong? Are you okay? Like if she sat there quiet, I'm just like, are you all right? Like what's happened? What have I done wrong? I don't do that anymore. I kind of sit back and just relax, and maybe I ask once, and if she's like, yeah, I'm fine. I know there's loads of memes about when she says she's fine. She's not really fine. But my view is if you say, yeah, I'm fine, I'm now going to have to take it for what it is, because the alternative is I annoy you until you're not fine. So I just embrace it for what it is. And I will pivot on to you, unless you've got questions about what I've been through with attachment styles, but pivot on to you in terms of, you feel like you've been with anyone of any of these different styles?
Again, Rosie's very secure attachment style.
Yeah.
And once I actually remember looking into just secure attachment style like a while ago after my previous relationship, and I was like, okay, is this or nothing? Like, I think beforehand, I think in my previous relationships, they needed a lot of reassurance, and they definitely had it's very weird thinking about it in hindsight because it was such a long time ago, but maybe I could have been better at giving them assurance that they needed. I thought I did at the time. I think I'd probably be a lot more reassuring. I'm probably way more reassuring in my relationship now because I know how to communicate better, as that happens with, you know, age and maturing and having more life experience. But yeah, I think I would definitely categorize them in more the anxious attachment style. And I think that's what I was saying earlier in terms of like with work and relationships. That is one which I've definitely had like, it goes beep, 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 like in my head when I think like the anxious attachment style. That's the easiest one for me to kind of like pinpoint when I'm interacting with it, because the symptoms are very much the same. Because in terms of with work and relationships, with work, they're usually just on it, can have feedback without like getting upset or crying and all that type of shit, which is very much in anxious because they don't like criticism and they need that validation. People who work alone, they might struggle with collaboration, but if you tell them, oh, this thing's done, then they're like, great, and they could just do their bit. You could probably trust them to do it, but they're probably very much like just quiet and do and get what they need to do done.
I find it interesting in the work scenario because I think the work version of attachment styles, or the business version of it's a lot more malleable.
Yeah, absolutely. But with I can't really think of collaborating with disorganized attachment style with
They
work
tend not to get jobs, to be honest.
in terms of like the working with people on the same level. But
Yeah.
with a manager, when they can't make a decision, when you need them to make a decision, they're put in a position of authority and they basically can't do it. And that's where the disorganized one pisses me off.
I compare those kind of people to like, those people that just join a Call of Duty lobby, run the game and then get some XP. Those are the kind of people that you see are disorganized and still get promotion. Like you look at them, you think, how on earth did you get the job? And then I just go, you've been it long enough that they've just had to give you a promotion or question why you're still here. I was thinking about the business types a bit more, and I was trying to think of examples of the different attachment styles. I think in business, I would love to be able to say the secured attachment styles is also the best, but I'm not sure. I think it depends on the role and what you want from someone. Because the disorganized one, I think those are they're just best left on the project they care about. Leave them doing their ADHD most in the corner of the room somewhere. Like give them their own project and touch base with them every now and then. But as a manager, you kind of want to be the skilled attachment, but have people who are the anxious attachment style working for you sometimes. As long as you can cope with them badgering you with questions and FaceTime or requests for FaceTime all the time, you might actually benefit from those kind of people working for you.
So it's actually interesting you said that, because I didn't do this for any of the others, but I did ChatGPT. And the one thing that I did do was the downsides of secure attachment style.
Yeah.
And the ones that I came up were, I'm just getting to the office, over trusting or overlooking red flags, frustration with insecure partners. That's me to a fucking T. They might struggle to understand or empathize as anxious or avoidant attachment styles, leading to impatience in relationships. This can cause difficulty when dealing with partners or colleagues who need extra reassurance or space. Yeah,
actually, cool. Let's double down, actually, because I'm enjoying how we've gone for the people that think they're perfect.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we got this far and people have probably gone,
Discomfort with extreme independence. Secure individuals value healthy interdependence, so they may struggle with people who are highly independent or emotionally distant, such as avoidant partners or lone wolf co-workers. They might feel unfulfilled in relationships where the other person refuses emotional connection. That is very much me, because if I'm in a needy, affectionate mood and you're like, no, I'm fine, I'm like, well, you just fucking hate me. So like, that's pretty much me.
I'd say relationship wise, I've been anxious. I'm more anxious. I'm anxious transferring into secured because I'm just accepting the world for what it is. In work, I'm definitely secured with more secured than I am on the anxious side.
Yeah.
I think the downside of being secured is they often don't learn from their lessons. Because when you basically do a new game, a hard reset for every new encounter you have, it's almost like you forget that some people are dicks. And there are patterns and behaviors to look out for to spot the dicks.
Yeah. I think there's definitely, you need to, I'll finish this list and I'll go on to what I need to say.
Yeah, I feel like you really want to finish this list.
So
Do it, man.
there's less competitive or aggressive and high stakes environments. So in business or leadership, they basically might not be as cutthroat, and emotional availability can be draining. So being over communicative and emotionally present for others can lead to emotional fatigue if they don't set boundaries, which we have a whole episode on. And I think you basically need to know, with your certain style in different contexts, that you basically need to know when to tap in to different sort of behaviors as like quite cognitively. This slightly different, but maybe for another episode. Personality types as well, because I've done that 16 personalities thing, and I've done it in 2018 and I've done it now, and I actually think I got different results.
I always get different results. Always.
Because oh really? Because I was getting the same thing. I've done it like many times, and I didn't do it for a few years, and I went from basically the same results but from E to I, which basically means I'm way more introverted now, which I found quite interesting. And I took it again to make sure, and I got the same thing.
I've done it multiple times in the same week and got different resuls.
I'm
always within like...
You have 25 personalities, even though it's
I knew kind of just... I was going to say, but then I think I need to add some more to just find out which one I sit in. I do think maybe I'm disorganized attachment. I don't know.
But I think that could be an interesting thing. I find different personalities very interesting, and I view this as a personality trait, because put it this way: like, everything in life is based on relationships, right? So I think having a deep comprehension of them is actually quite important for different contexts. So this is why I find this shit really interesting.
Do you view yourself as like an observer in life? Maybe this might actually play into why you want to be a producer and why you're developing the skill set of kind of just watching and almost like being the guy of the controller.
Well, the thing why I like so the thing that got me into editing was actually film trailers, and I'm gonna go back to my roots, double down on that. And I you know when a film trailer is better than the film, like The Last Jedi, for example. Trailer is one of the best trailers I've ever seen. I watched it like 30 times. Film's ass, but the trailer's sick. And I've gone back and like watched the trailers, and I was like obsessed with how, like, getting people gassed to see something and like building up hype. Building up hype is basically what I got really interested in. And then I got interested in like the consumer behavior and like how like promotion works and like getting people to feel shit through a screen. And that's why I got interested in the whole editing aspect of it. So that's a little like origin story.
Fair enough.
But so that's why I wanted to get into the editing thing, because I basically wanted to be like, I want to do this, but for films that I'm interested in.
You wanted to have an influence. It wasn't because you like to watch the world go by. You wanted to actually have a part to play in how people feel about things. And
basically want to manipulate people to feel
something. Yeah, basically. I'm trying to say it without getting you arrested, but yeah. You're a coercive guy.
I want to manipulate people in a nice way and make money off it. So I'm gonna vote.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I want to make sick trailers to shit movies and get you guys gassed for no reason.
And I'll take my final deal with you. It's just like, crap, I can't really say that out loud. Taking you off the credits now.
But yeah, what was I gonna say?
Something, hopefully.
Yeah. In terms of you, Sam, do you have attachment styles that you prefer to not collaborate with. So as we work together, right,
Yeah.
on the pod, we collaborate pretty well.
Yeah.
How have you worked with people in the past badly / positively? And
Right.
how do you think the different attachment styles that you have with different people that you've worked
Yeah.
with have benefited from? Because you've worked with a lot more people than I have.
Yeah.
So I'm
I've been
interested
working
to.
since day one. Um, I'd say in most cases where I find discomfort, I avoid people, or I try to avoid them unless avoiding them isn't an option to be able to do my job. So if there's someone in another team that I don't usually like work with, and honestly, there's no like social credit by interacting with them. And quite frankly, they're annoying. Maybe they're the anxious type and they keep badgering me with stuff and conversations. And I'm just there like, making you happy doesn't really thrill me because there's always something wrong and I can't fix you. So those kind of people I maybe embody more of the avoidant attachment style for them. And I kind of just take a step back and slowly put walls between me and them and maybe tasks and projects. There's also the kind of people that are the disorganized ones. And in general, the disorganized people, I tend not to have to work with them. But if I do, I take more of the secured approach. And if I do have to work with you, and the same with any other attachment style I have to work with, I try to take more of a mentor view on things. So maybe I embody more of a secured attachment style in that I try to be more pragmatic. I try to sit down and go, okay, so why do you process the world in the way you do? Why do you keep doing these things? And can we just talk about how maybe it's impacting our teamwork and what we do? Because ultimately, what I'm trying to do is make my life easier whilst I work in this company with this person. So if there isn't a choice and I have to work with them, I'd take more of the approach of trying to make them aware of their actions and their behaviors and coax them more into being a human that people can tolerate. You do get the people that are very stubborn, and I think that's more in the disorganized style. People who are quite like, no, I'm fine the way I am. It's okay to be annoying. And then at that point, you're not an anxious attachment style because you don't seek for me to want to be around you. You just seek to be an annoying person. You seek to, the devil's advocate type people. I think they should all be chucked in the disorganized stuff because they're erratic in how they approach the world. They always want, to basically cause disharmony, um, and those kind of people, showing them who they are, honestly doesn't help. Sometimes just the fact that you're having a conversation with them is all they want. It's basically your attention is probably all they need from you. People like that, I go up the ladder. If I can't get what I need from you, if we can't collaborate, if I can't get anything done efficiently, if you can't justify to me why your behavior is beneficial to what we're trying to do, I go up the ladder, I talk to the manager, or I work them out of the project. Wherever it is, I'll find a way. Even if it comes to finding a cheap contractor that I can tell the company is more efficient, I will do that just to get them out of the way because they just annoy me. And I think sometimes you just got to be a savage. But in general, I'd love to think I'm more of the secured attachment with fair traits of anxious around the people I work with. And why I say that is I want stability in my mind. I want to look at people I work with and be able to have some kind of logical reasoning around what they do. But the anxious part, I'm still aware of what I've been through in the past and previous companies I've worked at. And I'm aware of warning signs. And just because I'm trying to be pragmatic doesn't mean I throw the warning signs away. Sometimes you need cheat codes in life, and your anxiety is those cheat codes. It helps you skip a few campaigns so you can finish the mission early, because you've already been through this crap before. So when I'm talking to someone and they're kind of like backchatting or talking down to me, am I going to react aggressively? No, but I'm definitely working my plan in terms of how I avoid working with you again. And that's where maybe I embody the secured style of, okay, we've been triggered here. How can we logically get away from this problem? And that's what we do. But I'll turn that question back on you. And maybe that kind of study brings us to the point where we look at how we benefit our audience with what we've learned in our journeys. But yeah, in work, what kind of people have you encountered? Because you've got some mad stories about your previous companies.
Um, I definitely enjoy working. I know right now in my current role,
Mm-hmm.
like they're secure. They're secure as shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure where. I think in my first initial job, I think because everyone was kind of like on a horizontal playing field, everyone was anxious, and as a result, everyone's looking to kind of screw each other over in order to make themselves look good. And I didn't want to put myself into that category. I don't like being a chameleon and changing my personality for different people particularly those who I don't like.
Yeah.
And I find it quite hard to have to mute part of myself to fit in. And this is something actually with my therapist pointed out to me, is that it's very important for you to be your authentic self in all different contexts in your life, because you can when you're at home, when you're with your partner, when you're with your friends, but you don't feel like you can at work. And that was the issue with my last role, because I was always kind of like looking over my shoulder and like I was basically forced to be anxious and be hyper aware, because like I would turn up 5 minutes late. Little did they know I had a dentist appointment, whatever, and then someone would complain to my boss, and my boss would be like, "People are noticing that you're late." Shit like that. Stupid as fuck. So I'm very happy to have found a very secure environment. And I'm avoiding disorganized leaders like the plague, because it limits you if you can't go to your line manager and be able to rely on them, and they don't like reliance, and say, "Oh, hey, how do I do this?" And they don't know. It's like, why am I reporting to you then? like objectively, why are you my manager? Who can manage me? Lead me. I want to be led.
Show me the way, please.
Literally, please.
Show me why I should look up to you.
I'm begging for a crumb of leadership, and I can't respect you if you expect me to respect you for no reason other than you have manager and you have a graph that has my name and a line to you. That's the only reason why you're my manager. It just didn't make any sense.
True.
And you know what I'm like when I can see something so clear cut, like if the sky's blue and you're telling me it's purple, I'm gonna fight you, because like this doesn't make any sense to me. You know what I mean? When it's so clear.
Violence, man. Straight to violence. Straight to just throw fists at people, man. Jesus.
And like everyone's telling me the sky's purple, and I'm like, but why? Like, but why?
Tell me why.
Evidently blue. Are you? And like, I look and like this sort of happened like with the last roles. Like everyone's telling me all this shit, and I'm just being like, nah, you're all wrong. And well, we all know how that story turned out, didn't we? So
we moved up, Lewis. We moved up.
Yeah. But,
we listen and we clearly don't learn.
Yeah. I listened and judged. That's what I did. But anyway, man. I think we should wrap up. You got training.
Should do, bro. I do have training. I've got to go get punched in the face.
Yeah, cool. I think that's
come
a
back
good
to smile on my face.
episode.
Yes.
So yeah, cool.
Guys.
Yeah, do the outro.
Oh, let's. Oh, okay, fine. I will do the outro. Check us out. The podcast Evolve. That's on Instagram. That's on TikTok. That is on YouTube. The podcast Evolve. We do have a website, thepodcastevolve.com. I probably need to sit with Lewis and think about what on earth that is and what on earth the future is for that thing, and whether we still need a website or not. So we'll have a chat about that at some point. And then check us out on Spotify. Evolve, the podcast Evolve. Look us up. Type in Samuel Grantson or Lewis Facey. You'll find us somewhere. Is that it? Lewis, where can they find your producer stuff? Where people
editing.
Where can people contact you?
Editing page. Zona Studios, XNDER. That's Zona Studios on Instagram. ZonaStudios.com.
Love to hear it.
Just DM me on Instagram as well on the podcast page.
Slightly
on yeah. Right. See you guys.
See you guys. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.